What is up, guys? In today's video I'm going to be going over some unnamed or like more underrated loot spots in Fortnite Chapter 4. If you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful and informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below what your favorite place to land has been so far on the Chapter 4 island. So one key difference between the Chapter 4 island and previous Fortnite maps is there is less named POIs. This map only has 9 named locations. And what that does is it makes pretty much all of them, aside from the ones that are on the edge of the map, very congested. So POIs like Anvil Square, Faulty Splits, Slappy Shores, Frenzy Fields, and maybe a few others are going to be much hotter than that type of POI would be if there was more on the map. You know, a lot of players are going to land at named POIs, and when you have less named POIs on the map, that results in more players landing at each named POI. On average. And that can be cool if you want to have like a really high action, high kill game, but it can also make early game very fluky because early game is always the point in time which RNG kind of matters most. You know, if you land and get a DMR and the other person gets a Maven shotgun and you guys have a close range fight, you're at a disadvantage there. So the more people landing at your POI, the more early game RNG is going to matter. So if you have been struggling so far in Chapter 4, consider landing at some of these unnamed locations, and there's actually a lot of very good unnamed locations on the Chapter 4 map. There's less named POIs, but I feel like there's much more quality unnamed spots than there was on the Chapter 3 island. The first one we're going to talk about is probably my favorite spot to land so far in Chapter 4, and that is going to be this mansion outside Frenzy. This is more of like a solo duo spot. Anything higher than that, it's going to get tough. There is area on the outskirts around this area where you guys could split drop, but with this mansion, there's a very good amount of loot for a solo player, and you can loot it incredibly fast. There's several chests, several coolers, and it's such a small house that anybody else who lands there, you're going to be able to deal with very quickly. And if you're playing build mode, there's a solid amount of like trees and bushes around the mansion to be able to get mats and those big rocks once those end up getting buffed in the next update. And so from this mansion, I feel like you get a great amount of starting loot. There's also hollow chests that spawn here. And then you can loot into Frenzy Farm or the outskirts of Frenzy, or maybe even towards Slattered Slabs if that's what you want to do. But I usually loot this mansion and then go to Frenzy afterwards. And there is even more loot in between the mansion and Frenzy that you can get on the way, and then eventually fight the people inside of Frenzy. So this mansion is a great landing spot. It kind of reminds me a lot of the farm building in Chapter 2's Orchard. Like that's somewhat what it reminds me of. It's not quite as good as Orchard, but it kind of gives that vibe. So if you enjoyed Orchard, you'll probably enjoy this mansion. This next location is going to be this cul-de-sac outside of Slappy Shores. And there's 3 standard houses with a decent amount of loot. Not an insane amount of loot, but an okay amount of loot. And if you're playing something like Trios, each of you could land at one of these houses, and you'll have this place looted in no time. If you're playing builds, there's several trees and like bushes around here, fences for mats, as well as some rocks when those eventually get buffed. And then from this cul-de-sac, I feel like you have 2 potential options. You can go and loot towards Slappy Shores and then third-party Slappy Shores if that's something what you want to do. Or you can go to this left path here and go to this like kind of mid-map castle area. And this place has several Oathbound chests, hollow chests that spawn, as well as just regular loot. And then there's an NPC here that also sells shockwave hammers. So if you have been having a hard time getting the shockwave hammer, which is pretty unfortunate in Chapter 4, without the hammer, it's going to be hard to get kills because everybody else has one and then they can just run from you. But the NPC at this left path where the star is sells shockwave hammers. So that is a very good way to be able to just like consistently obtain the shockwave hammer while also having somewhat of a low key drop. If you want to get wins, I think this is a good spot, and it can also work for the other game modes. Not the team game modes, not the most loot at these houses, but when you combine the loot at the houses and the castle area, plus potentially third-partying Slappy Shores, I feel like there's a solid amount of loot at that point. The next place we're going to talk about is going to be this castle island at the bottom of the map. So this castle island has some Oathbound chests, which are quite good. The Oathbound chests give you high probability of getting shockwaves. And then from here, you have a few different choices. You can go to the shore right next to it, and there's even more houses and more Oathbound chests. Or you can go to the left, and there's actually a solid amount of loot in the outskirts of Frenzy Farm. This bottom part of Frenzy Farm has more loot than you would expect. I was actually surprised when I saw that all like the chests that spawn here potentially. And those houses on the shore also have potential Oathbound chests. So you have 2 shots at Oathbound chests essentially with the castle island plus the shoreline, and they decreased the Oathbound chest spawn rate in the most recent update to 70%, but I feel like more often than not, one of those is going to spawn, and then you have really high odds of getting the shockwave hammer, which I already went over is probably the most important thing in the game right now. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be this village north of Frenzy Farm. There is an Oathbound chest here, as well as hollow chests, and just a decent amount of loot at this village. And then from here, you have a few different rotation paths. You can go into the gas station and trailer park, and the trailer park actually has a lot of coolers, so you should be able to get a decent amount of chug splashes from there, in addition to other loot, plus the hollow chests at the gas station if you do to get a key. But also in this kind of like more mid-map area, I don't know what to describe this as, there is an NPC, you'll see it on the map right now where the star is. That NPC sells high rarity thunder shotguns, and I believe it's purple or better. And I think the purple one can hit for 190 this season. So getting the purple thunder shotgun is a huge advantage. Once again, this isn't the most loot, but that's the way it's going to go for a lot of these unnamed locations. It's more of like a solo duo type thing. In squads, it can be really hard to make these type of spots work. But between the castle and the houses on the hill, plus the gas station and trailer park, plus being able to purchase a high rarity thunder shotgun from that NPC, I feel like you have a very solid loot path, and you're in the middle of the map, so you're really not going to have to worry about first zone storm, and you have a lot of different choices for where you want to rotate. You can go Anvil Square, you can go Faulty Splits, you can go Frenzy, maybe even Slattered Slabs. I don't know if anybody ever goes there, but you have so many different options of what you want to do depending on like how comfortable you are with the loot you got, or if you want to loot more stuff on the outskirts, that can work as well. The next thing we're going to talk about, the final spot, is going to be this north dock on the snow area. This is like where the snow has a random grass patch next to it. And this place has a lot of loot, actually. There's 2 slurp trucks, a solid amount of chests, and an NPC here that sells chug splashes, surprisingly. This spot, I think, is probably the most underrated spot in the game right now. You can get guaranteed chug splashes, guaranteed full HP off spawn without needing to use any of your heals because there's multiple slurp trucks. Even if you like need to reboot somebody, this like could be a decent spot to like regain just because there's so much loot. And then in the outskirts of this area, there are these castles which also have even more loot, and these castles have launch pads. So while this is on the edge of the map, you're really not just destined to have a really slow paced boring game just because you landed here. With the looting this area and getting shield very quick, and then being able to hit those launch pads and get more towards mid-map by chaining the launch pads in each of these castles, you can get out of this snow biome very fast and into the action. So you have a very safe start, but you don't necessarily have a super boring game the entire game. So I feel like this frozen dock area is going to be one of the like best spots in the game. I think this is going to be like a spot that people talk about as like being a good win spot, like how Orchard was in Chapter 2 or like Yonder Yard was in Chapter 1. Don't really know what that would be in Chapter 3. It felt like there wasn't very many like good unnamed locations in Chapter 3, but yeah, that is gonna be it for this video. I just wanted to show you guys some spots. I've had a lot of people commenting on videos saying they can't even get past early game because of how chaotic these POIs are, which is just kind of an unfortunate case of the map the way it is right now, and the flow of the game may kind of change over time as more and more players start landing at some of these outskirts spots. But if you just want to, you know, have very good starts and probably get easy wins right now, taking advantage of some of these spots gives you a huge advantage on other players, especially if you're able to land at the ones with the Oathbound chests and get the shockwave hammer off the rip guaranteed. That's just a huge advantage to have in game. But that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, comment down below where you like to land. I'm sure there's like other unnamed spots on the map that I missed. I mainly just wanted to focus on 5 that I thought were very good in this video. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.